Hey everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Pod Gazer podcast.
Now this is podgazing.
Hey everyone, thanks for joining me on another episode of the Pod Gazer podcast. Today we have a very, very special guest. I've been super excited about this one for a while. Let's just bring him right in. We are going to be interviewing today the legendary Mr. Brendan Wayne. Mr. Wayne, how are you today?
I'm incredible. I don't know if I got legend status, but I'll take it. I'll take it from you.
Oh,
As long as it
I
didn't come out of my mouth.
I love it. How are you today, Mr. Brendan?
I'm good. It's been a day so far, but any day I get to stand above the dirt, I have done something right. So I'll take it.
Right? Yeah, every day you wake up breathing is a good day.
It's for real.
Yeah, I love it. Well, thanks for being here on this podcast. I really do appreciate it. I got a couple questions I like to ask just to kind of break some ice, and then we kind of go from there. So just some very basic questions here. So first, I always like to ask, what is your favorite Star Wars movie?
The Mandolorian and Grogu.
Hey, good answer. I was wondering. Hey,
See?
there it is.
No. I mean, honestly, I think, I heard somebody talking about it, about like winning championships. And they're like, what was your favorite? And they're like, honestly, the person who was talking, I can't remember who it was. They were like, it's the first one. It's always the first one because you're always chasing that same high of that thing from then on.
Yeah.
And, I think New Hope it brought me into one of the greatest mythologies we've ever seen and witnessed, and now I get to be a part of that mythology in some small way is something I'm stoked about.
Yeah, absolutely, man. That's crazy that I hear some of these folks I get to talk to at conventions and stuff. They kind of say the same thing. They're like, "Man, like I grew up watching this, and now to be a part of it is just out of this world, out of my mind, kind of a thing."
Yeah, I mean, and for me, I love the One Battle After Another, Paul Thomas Anderson. I love those, stories and all that. And there's an importance that we see more of these kind of movies. And at the same time, we also need to have these shows like Star Wars and not to be too, big timing about it. Like, I don't mean it in a we're super important way, but George Lucas, what he was doing, what he was creating, me as a father of three, it's really important that we remember about, like baby Han Solo wasn't always doing the right thing, but at the end of it all, he did the right thing in the toughest moments. And that's something that we as people can learn from. And so, to be a part of something that's not just fluff and fun, but actually has value, I can sit there and watch it with my kids and things like that. It's a huge and very cool thing to be able to represent on any level.
Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of interesting that you bring that up. I've been watching Roger Christian has a documentary called Galaxy Built on Hope, and just talks about having to redo everything. It's funny. I don't know if you've ever read his book, Cinema Alchemist. He talks about this kind of at the beginning where he's like, you're in the middle of a desert. You got a paint can full of red paint and you got a plane in front of you. And you're supposed to paint this plane red. And there's a dust storm coming. And the director comes up to you and says, "Hey, I actually need that paint, that plane. I need that blue. You need to paint that blue." And he's like, "I guess we're doing this." The way they revolutionized the film industry entirely and flipped it on its head is just insane.
Well, yeah, I mean, think about it. George couldn't get a Western done, so he found the next best thing, and it wasn't the next best thing. It was its own best thing. The Western's still great. This is great. And talk about, okay, well, we have to be cost effective. We don't want to pay a bunch of people to ride horses. We don't want to pay to rent horses, blah, blah, blah. And so he's like, fine, I'll make little toys and one of those, just like I would if I was a kid. Like his inventive way of thing had so many childlike qualities, meaning, hey, it's not necessarily childlike. It's the ingenuity of it all is the most important thing. And that's I don't know. I think it's incredible. And it's a reminder that, when you're looking at your kids and they're saying something you think is ridiculous. Now sometimes it just really is. But
Yes.
other times you listen, because as somebody who's always trying to create in his job, they're the greatest imaginative things I have are in my life.
Right. That's awesome. I love it. What is the second question I have is, what is your favorite Star Wars character besides the Mandalorian?
You would be hard pressed to get me besides Mailer. What other? I mean, I got to create a character that no one had ever seen. Pretty awesome. The only other one which I also was able to do is an X-wing pilot. Like, to me, that my dad was a Navy pilot, flew in Korea. He's a vet.
Okay.
Like, he could fly a plane, prop jet, didn't matter. My Uncle Paul was Air Force, incredible guys, flew in Vietnam. So to be a fighter pilot, which is X-wing, fighting for a bigger cause than myself,
Yeah.
those are the things that are cool, that resonate with me.
Yeah. You got to fly as an X-wing pilot. When did you get to do that?
Oh, that's funny. You didn't know that? Okay, so I was in Ahsoka, and I'm one of the pilots that saves Ahsoka. I'm literally on the end of the bed. I'm in the X-wing, the whole deal, and my name is Lieutenant Lander in that. And that was an ode to Richard Bluff, who is a big, Lucasfilm, been around forever, helped build sets, all the stuff. Incredible, like my N1, all that stuff. He was, head of building, right? Well, all that, his son was drawing on set. Dave Filoni saw it. It was a X-wing helmet. He finished it, and it's a squadron nobody's ever seen before. I'm the only one who's ever been in it, and there you go. I'm Lieutenant Lander, named after his son.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
That's really cool. I didn't realize you were an X-wing pilot. Man, you gotten to experience a lot of sides of Star Wars that are really cool. Pilot, space cowboy.
Oh yeah. I mean, and it is quite amazing because, to hear Dave tell it and Mr. Lucas, the X-wings were the cowboys, and that's the way he saw them. He wanted them all to be kind of cowboys. And David, told me earlier, he's like, you're literally the epitome of what George wanted as an X-wing. And I was like, I take that as a compliment. That's pretty cool. So as I like to as the compliment was another level of coolness. Like every time you think, well, I get to be Mando, that's the coolest thing ever. And then you start to, I get to sit down with, George Lucas and Dave Filoni. Oh, I got to hang out with, Favreau every day. Oh, I got to hang out with Carl Weathers. We worked with Ming-Na Wen. And you just, like, every time you think you're, Gina Carano. Like you just think you hit these apexes, and then somebody walks in and you're like, that's Sigourney Weaver. And then she walks up and introduce her, and she's like, Brendan, there's nothing like watching you as the Mandalorian. You are incredible. And like, I'm like, look at her, and she's like, yeah, like it really, you're incredible at what you do. And I was like, wow, thank you. So like, so kind. Like she didn't have to take the time, but she did.
No.
So yeah, always amazed at the class of people that they're able to bring in that are part of this. It's incredible.
That's insane. That's so cool. I can't even imagine, like, not only did you grow up with Star Wars, now you get to be a part of it in multiple different ways, but now you have other people in the actor world who are coming up to you and like, dude, I love, like, you are the Mandalorian to
Yeah.
me, you know.
And people that
And even
I
Emily
really
Swallow had said
respect.
that.
Oh, that's, I mean, she's, she's one of the early, in season one, I didn't have a lot of guest stars. It was me and the kid. And
Yeah.
so it was to have them come in, like when Emily did, or when Tate came in. He around quite a bit. He was one of the first guys I worked with. Um, it was a lot of me and the directors. So it was like me, Rick, me and Bryce, uh, me and anybody, you know what I mean? Deb Chow. And you're like, oh, this is, kind of lonely on some level, but it was really good because it allowed me to focus in on what I needed to do, and kind of figure out all the things I needed to for Mando. So it works out really well. Either way, it would have been a blessing, but it was always really fun.
So for those of you watching, you guys see the last name Wayne there. Yes, he is the grandson of legendary actor John Wayne. I did want to ask you to kind of get the elephant out of the room here. What was it like growing up?
Elephant?
No, he's not an elephant. He's an awesome cowboy. I grew up watching him. I still love your grandfather's movies. Like I actually got my kids to watch some of the movies, and they're like, "This is awesome!" Like the cow, like
the Cowboys.
Yeah, man.
What was it
like growing up in that kind of household with your grandfather being who he was, and just kind of how did that play a part in you getting into acting?
Well, it's funny. I think it hindered me personally, in making the choice early on when I probably could have made it a lot earlier. I didn't even go study anything until I was about 26, acting wise. I think I always knew I wanted to be, but I'm the last of 8 kids. I didn't want to, and none of my brothers and sisters had gone and done it. And I didn't want to, I don't know, disappoint my mom, like, because she wanted us to get a job. And her idea of a job was something that you could count on. And in acting, there's nothing you can count on. Now, if it was a different thing, different whatever choices, my mom probably could have got me in when I was young, and then I would have been working forever.
Yeah.
Been like Jason Bateman. You just get to work, especially if you work young in Hollywood. They keep you around quite a bit, actually, because they get comfortable and they're like, oh, I don't have to worry about this guy, unless of course you're like some crazy drug addict. But so I didn't start it till later, and then I'm only 6 foot 185, and so walking into rooms, it was it's quite amazing, watching people who don't even necessarily know, but they know, hey, well, John Wayne's, he's a big fella. And then all of a sudden they're like, oh, he's 5 inches shorter. Like, you see people's heads drop as they look at you. Yeah. And you're like, oh, yeah, I'm down here. I'm 5 inches shorter than him. Sorry. Like that kind of thing. And it's just pretty funny, to be able to. I think I had to overcome it on some levels, and I think eventually they figured out. I was able to kind of build a name for myself in my own physical, because I was John Wayne's grandson. In spite of the fact that he had famous stuntmen, they kind of just assumed that I did my own stunts because they're like, oh, you're John Wayne's grandson, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, Ben Johnson, who won an Academy Award, was a stuntman. Yakima Canutt is a legend stuntman. Like, but whatever, like, if I had said it, then I wouldn't have been able to do it. And so I'd rather do it and then apologize later if it's not good enough. And so it was really cool, because that's the reality is I've never been paid for a stunt. I'm not being cheeky. It's not like, I love what I do, I get paid to wait. No, I mean, honestly, like, stuntmen like mine, who has won 2 Emmys as the Mandalorian, actually have a craft that I cannot do.
Right.
I provide the acting, the gunslinging, which I'm really good at, some of the physical stuff. But when it gets, down to it, and there's a guy, sliding through a room, cutting robots' Achilles tendons, that's Latif. So I like to make sure that the respect is given, because as much as we'd like to shine the light on the quarterback all the time, if the quarterback can't stand up and throw in the pocket, then he's on his back and he looks like Baker Mayfield when he got drafted versus, when he's got protection and has time. You know what I mean? And that's what I have because of the crew around me. My grips, my camera, my focus puller Dom, like all those guys are the reason why I'm able to stand in the pocket, drop a gun, go, Clancy Brown in the Prisoner episode, go run through the forest with the kid in my arm. It's because of everybody's great work, what we have. I don't care what movie you watch. I don't care how good the actor is. It's never the actor. They're
Right.
part of it. And there's a reason why we have the Best Actor award, but it's just a part.
Right.
I think I reposted it. It was Daniel Radcliffe had been talking about, people don't talk about these people. My AD, they're scheduling every day, everything we have to do, and they're making sure, they're the ones who usually yell action. Like those are all the things. Like, is everything safe? Here's the safety briefing. Hey, I need you here at this time. Blah blah blah. Like, so, yeah. It's incredible, and they've become some of my greatest friends on earth. My prop guys. Cool. Oh my God, the coolest stuff. Like, I geek out on that when I'm on set, and I'm like with Josh and Lawson and Yang, all these guys. They're the best characters. Like, really fun.
That's cool. Yeah, there's so many more cogs to the wheel that you don't realize. I got a buddy that works out there and does a lot of like the set stuff and behind the scenes. And I'm like, there's so many more people that like him that work behind the scenes that you never see, that deserve a lot of credit for what goes on.
Yeah, no, and it's crazy.
I do want to ask, so what was it like when it first started coming around that, they were going to start doing this Mandalorian thing? I know Emily Swallow in her interview talked about they didn't really tell her it was Star Wars related. They just kind of had her read some lines and stuff. What was that experience like for you when they started to approach you for this role?
This is funny. At the time, I was having a kid who was going away to college. She's going away to BU. I bartended. That was my 22nd year at the same place. I've been bartending for 26 years at that time. It was how I made a living, how I paid for my, kids' lives and my own, as well as whatever I was getting in acting from, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. to Sons of Anarchy and whatever, because you're always in between something. And when you have kids, you can't have dry spells. So at that point, like I think my sister was paying for us to fly my kid out to school because we just couldn't afford it. And I got a call from my agent, and he was like, "Hey, I need you to go try this costume on. It's for this Untitled project." And I said, "When?" And he goes, "Oh, it's on Friday." Nope, I bartend on Fridays. Weekends too much money. And he's like, "No. I go, "Am I getting paid for it?" And he's like, "Let me see." Calls me back, and he's like, "Yeah, you get paid for it." I go, "What time is it?" He goes, "This time." I'm like, "Can they do it earlier?" No. And he's like, dude, he's like losing his mind because at this point he knows it's Untitled Star Wars, but he can't relay it to me till I, sign the NDAs or whatever.
Yeah.
And all I'm doing is trying on a costume, so I don't even think it's an audition of any type. So I'm like, no. And he's like, "What?" I'm like, if I, let me see if I can go in. So I asked, "Okay, can I go in later? What's the deal?" They were like, "Yeah, you can go in to work later." So I called him back. I said, "Okay, yeah, I'll do it." So I go over to this place by a Costco. It's kind of industrial over there. I go under this overpass. I'm like, this is kind of sketchy. And I'm driving up, and I pull up to this building, but I've done enough low budget movies to know, you just do it, I did Red Dead Riding Hood. So, you know, some things you just know. So I pull up and then I get there and there's like, I got to buzz in and I got to like put my face on the camera. I'm like, okay, this is kind of fancy. Am I about to get abducted? Is what's going on? And I go inside and I haven't looked over here. And they're like, you got to sign this NDA and put your name in. I'm like, okay, let's go. And I look and I'm like, holy cow, that's an avatar. Holy cow, that's Idris Elba from Thor. Oh, this is T2. This is T1. What? Where am I? And I mean, like, bigger than full size. Like none of this kind of like miniatures size. I'm like, what is this place? This legacy place. I have no clue. And so they take me into this like, like a dressing room, makeup room. Like if it was a theater, that's what they have in the back where it has a mirror where you can put on your own makeup and get dressed. And they open this case, a big deep case, travel case. And I'm like, what's that? And then they pop it open. I look, I'm like, dude, that's Boba Fett. I know what this is. And they're like, and I mean like hardcore. No, it's not. I'm like, no, you guys, I already signed the NDA. It's good. I know what it is. They're like, no. I'm like, okay, whatever. They won't tell me the name. Like they didn't correct me. But they're like, it's not Boba Fett. And I'm like, dude, I grew up in this. I get it. It's a little different colored, but I get it. They just kind of like, okay, you're stupid. And I was like, whatever. So I go and I put it on, and their eyes are getting wide. They're like, oh my God. And I don't see what they see. I'm in the thing. So I'm like, whatever. And then they're like, well, here's the test, like it's long. And they're like, well, the guy before you who's in this was 6'5". I'm like, well, it's not going to fit me. But he was in such good shape. And by the way, a little Easter egg, he plays Rada, the physical version of Rada in the movie. He doesn't do the voice or anything, but he is Rada. His name is Rich Citron. He is stunt Batman on Instagram. He's amazing. What? He was going to do it, but they wanted somebody who could. He's tall. He's 6'5". So they wanted somebody who was an actor and a stunt man. And then they were like, we can't figure out the heights on this, so we need to get somebody. So Latina. Anyways, so I tried on, put the helmet on. They're like, holy cow, this fits you. Like everything fit. It was just a little bit big, like long.
Yeah.
And then they took some pictures, and I recently got a bunch of them from that day. And I was like, this is so cool, whatever. And they're like, draw the gun. And I was like, sure. And whatever. And I told them what I needed, in order for the gun to draw correctly. You got to have a tie down. They're like, oh, John doesn't want a tie down. It's bad. Like he doesn't want it to look so cowboy, or Dave doesn't. I don't know. And I was like, okay, I don't know who you're talking about. So we get it done. I leave, getting ready for, I think it was a week later. I was taking my kid to Boston. So that weekend I work, whatever. Somebody asked me, I'm like, I don't know, some like knockoff Star Wars thing. And so I go, I work the whole weekend. Nothing. My agent doesn't call me, nothing. So I'm like, okay, it's Hollywood. I'll just get ghosted. And then I think it was like Tuesday, that following week, I got a call saying, hey, we need you to come back and audition on camera for Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni. It's Star Wars. It's this new show that they're doing. It's this Friday. And I was like, nope. My agent's like, what? I'm like, I can't. My kid's going to college. Said she might get married, and I could probably miss that because she might get married again. But I'll never miss her first day of college because she only has one of those.
Yeah.
He was like, dude, what? Just postpone it. I'm like, nope, not doing it. Can't do it. I had, non-fuels. So I was like, no, can't do it. He's like, what? So I get like 27 different panic calls over the next like 48 hours. And I all I said was, hey, look, I'm not coming back early. I don't care if you buy the ticket. It doesn't matter. I can do it Thursday or when I get back. That's it. And they're like, no, we need to get on this now because we need to start rehearsing. I'm like, there's nothing I can do, you guys.
Yeah.
They are, my agent's like, you're we're going to lose. And I'm like, so be it. And John, the production team moved it around, got me in there, changed it for me, called me, and was like, no, you're fine. You're fine. You're good. They're going to come in on Thursday. I'm like, great. No big deal. And sure
Wow.
enough, I went in and it was weird because I didn't, I still hadn't gotten it, but I was in the costume. I walked in. I'm like, you guys need to shorten this rifle. The gun needs to open a hole in the pants, put the strap around my leg. No one will see it. And we'll lock down the end bit so that the gun can actually clear without the holster coming out off my leg.
Yeah.
And they were like, oh my God. And all of a sudden everybody's taking notes. And I didn't think about it at the time. I just answered, questions like, what do you think about this? And, usually in auditions, you're like, this is great. Thank you so much for having me. Yay. And I was
Yeah.
not. I was like, this needs to be fixed. That needs to do this. Change this. They're like, that rifle's $10,000. I'm like, take 6 inches off it or no one will be able to use it. They're
Yeah.
like, oh my God. I'm like, watch when I walk, it's going to go into my boot. And it did. And so they had to kind of figure out a way to make it work. I'm like, you need to put a magnet here. I think that would work, and a strap to it so that I can pull this rifle off without having to unhook it because you can't be smooth with it. And they're like, oh my
Yeah.
God. I'm like, gunslingers are smooth, cowboys smooth. Like nobody wants to see a 6 different little things that you have to do before you get like you're gonna die. Like we're gonna make him smart. Mind you, I didn't know who him was. I didn't know the level of what we were doing. Nothing. Then I took off and went and took my kid to college, and next thing you know, I got a phone call saying, "Hey, you got this. You're gonna work every day. You have to sign a contract. They give you no guarantees. Normally, you do something like this, they give you like you got 8 days guaranteed on each episode, and blah blah blah. But like they could have fired me the next, when I was done. Any day I was
Wow.
there. First 2 seasons and Boba Fett. That's how I worked. I had 1 day
Wow.
off in season 1. I worked every single day in the suit. I think the shortest day I ever had in season 1 was 10 hours in that suit. So I loved every minute of it. I loved figuring them out. It meant everything to me. So to be a part of like, it was just very cool. I never stepped back to look at what was going on. I just lived in those moments. I think the immediacy of the contracts. I worked every
Holy
day
crap.
first season. It was the greatest time. Like I was so involved in all aspects of it. Like, hey, how are we going to move them through here? What is this? And like I really, 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 really never wanted. And it got annoying for John and Dave and everybody, I'm sure. But like I never wanted them to be stupid. And it's funny. One of the proudest things that I've ever had in the suit was an article written by uh, a gentleman who I can't remember now what his background was, but he was very knowledgeable, understood how to go in and clear rooms and things like that. And he had written an article about how Mando was so intelligent. He didn't interview me. He had just done it by watching the show.
Wow.
And how he moved through the rooms. Like I never wanted him to walk in a room and get conked on the back of the head kind of guy. You know
Right.
what I mean? Like I wanted him to always be aware. And so if he was going to be this vigilant bounty hunter and then become a father, which is, very similar in concept but not in value, that's like that's how it goes.
So one of the things I remember you talking about at ICCC that was really hard to get down was like the head gestures and the movements, because
Yeah.
like when your face is seen, you can use like your eyes can get bigger or different things like that. With the Mando, it's a mask. So like talk about that experience.
It was incredible because I studied kabuki for it just to understand how to be still and radiate. And it's funny because we talked about my grandfather and growing up with that legend behind me. I think the one thing that kind of worked against me was I was always trying to work against his type, which was very still, very much a radiating presence, because I was like, I'm not as big as he is. I don't have that presence, whatever, whatever excuses I was making, thinking that I was, I want to do this on my own. I don't want anyone to think, oh, he's just copying his grandfather kind of thing. And so it was an incredible thing to have somebody who trusted you, and John and Dave, and would help guide you. And he'd be like, I worked with, Robert, on Iron Man, and teaching him how to use the map, and us learning how to do it. It gave him a shorthand to come to me to make it easier to just trust that all it takes, with Mando sometimes is just a simple this. Whereas, like if we're doing it without a helmet like now, I'd be like that. I'd turn and look. Well, with Mando, because it's got this long T, the idea is that like right here, I can now see everything over here. Yeah. And so all I have to do is this little movement. And then this one is a sudden, boom, boom. And so finding all those little levels to portray, like walking in the door in the ice bar when I get the mithril, or when the guys start to surround me on either side, in the bar, and they're, Tate and those guys are gonna, Transocean is coming to get me. And it's just a think somehow here it would look a little weird, but with that little head tilt, it doesn't give away anything to my perpetrators, but it tells the audience, oh, he's about to do something. And that was a very fun, cool process. And even just the movement physically, the hands running, and like, I'm running like this. Well, if you run like that in the suit, you look like Woody from Toy Story. So all of a sudden you're keeping your frame, trusting that everybody else on the set, their job is they're so good at their job, that you can just let them do it and you're going to look great, is an incredible, like freedom of burden. But I trusted everybody because they were so good at what they did. My camera was like, no, hey, this is your frame. So if you go out this way, I'm going to lose you. So I need you in wrap, perfect. And then I could look around, capture it. And that's how we worked. My grips, I'd be like, hey, how's my speed? And they're like, great. I'm like, does it look smooth enough? And they'd be like, yeah, it works for me. Because, they got to pull a camera or help guide a, guy in a steady cam. And so we're all working together to create this pace and tension of Mando that we all kind of fell in love with.
That's so cool. I love that. I'm like nerding out right now. I love like the behind the scenes stuff of like this, like how movies are made. Like it's I don't know, it's so intriguing.
I think a lot of guys like to come in and the PR people like to tell you that, hey, talk about yourself. And they did. I mean, I'll never forget my meeting with some PR people for the show. They were like, you're okay. It's okay to just talk about yourself. You don't have to talk about Latif and all this. And I was like, yeah, I do, because that's who I am. Like,
right.
Mando's here because Latif and I figured out who Mando was. Like anything else, I'm not interested in. Like, you want me to pull the blanket up on me, and at the same time, like, don't spill any beans, like behind the scenes stuff. I'm like, I don't know. Like for me, I stay away from giving away trade secrets, but everything else is like, I don't know, like this is what makes it fun for the fans on so many levels.
Yeah, absolutely. That's one of the things I've really enjoyed about getting to know Roger Christian, right? Is hearing like how he, like we talked about earlier, like how he came up with the lightsaber and these different weapons that we see in Star Wars and stuff, and like the interior of the Millennium Falcon. I'm like, dude, like that is so clever. I never would have thought of that in a million years.
Right?
Like
they're like, oh, I took a gaming chair and then we did this, and you're like, wait, whoa, that's really cool. Because you forget, at the end of the day, it really is just, our kid-like imagination on a much grander scale, obviously, and the details much better. But it literally is exactly that. Like, oh, I took this can and then I put a string in it and I brought it over to my buddy's house. He got a can, and now we're talking to each other. Like that's what we're doing, and that's the evolution of Star Wars. Now we're using, LED screens that are 20 feet high and 100 yards, circular in diameter, and I'm able to stand in there and not worry about a blue screen and ignoring the fact that there's just sheets around me. Instead, I get to see the actual, X-wing come in as Luke Skywalker comes to save the day on the
Yeah.
bridge in the ship. Like I get
What
to
a
see that
legend.
ship come in,
Yeah.
and you're like, whoa, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. Man, I remember that episode, like, sitting there watching it. I was watching one of my favorite Star Wars YouTubers is Star Wars Theory, and he got reamed for, like, he was bawling when he saw Luke Skywalker, and I was like, I can't say anything because I was right there with him, man. I thought that was so cool to see him return like that.
Yeah, I mean, come on. And then Dave and John, righting some wrongs, like with having Ahmed Best come and just
Oh,
be
yeah.
just a badass Jedi. Like, come
Yes.
on, man.
That was so
And it
cool.
wasn't just the funny thing is, it's not a, it's it, the amount of like heat that he took was so unwarranted. So to see it get, hey, you just took this load, so let's see if we can lighten it. And then to see it be so well received, just, if you ever worry about humanity, stop. We have an opportunity to be great because of these moments, in that we get to see that people do matter, and their recovery story, their comeback is so great. And we always fail, so why not have these moments? And Ahmed did not fail. It
Right.
was a failure of uh, the populace around him, and he was so great at it that people hated it. They thought,
Yeah.
I don't know, they
No.
forgot where we were. We're in Star Wars. We're not in,
Right.
whatever.
Right.
Dude,
100%. Yeah. No, 100%. I totally agree. Okay, so I gotta ask, and obviously you can't share much, which I get. But with the new Mando Grogu movie, like, did you know they were gonna make this into a movie for quite a while, or is this something like, hey, I know we talked about another season, we're actually gonna do a movie? Like,
so it was crazy. I did not know, because we had, I talked to John like 6 months before that, and he's like, I wrote it all. I have season 4 ready to go. Blah blah blah. We're just trying to figure out the logistics of it all. And then I think, you know, in Lucasfilm's hopes of, making sure we keep theaters viable, I think, as a business model. Um, I think all those factors came in, and they were like, no, we need to put this on the big screen. We've started our streaming platform. I think the streaming platform is way more complicated, and way more expensive than anybody on any level other than Netflix understood. And so it's a hard thing to maintain. So they were like, let's get this up in the theaters, and we'll go from there with it. And so when I found that out, that was crazy. And when they were like, yeah, of course we're gonna have you back. Um, it was really cool. But I'll be honest with you, doing the show, people were like, is it a big difference? No, I didn't feel that way. I didn't. We did a 4-hour movie every season, and so I don't know. I didn't see a big change in what we were doing. I mean, they were obviously doing IMAX versus, those kind of things are different. But other than that, it was
yeah,
it was all, straight across the board, and we're using the same crew 90% of it, and so that was a big deal for me, too, because it's like going back. I'd leave my house and I'm not with my kids and my wife, and it could be really lonely spending that much time away. But the fact of the matter is, they became like my family as well, just a different version of it. So it was
yeah.
very cool, very cool.
So obviously in the trailer, we got to see a couple new characters that we've seen in like Clone Wars and Rebels. We have Zeb coming in and Embo. What was it like working with those folks who are portraying those people, like on this big screen now?
Well, that's the great thing about this show, is we were working with guys that I knew. So Donald, Donald Mills, uh, he's even gotten in the Mando suit sometimes when they needed certain things done that, Latif was busy and I was not crafty enough to do. So I've known Donald since day one as well. Um, and he plays Emba, like he's the
Okay.
physical embodiment, and then they'll do all the CGI, all that stuff. But like Donald is that guy. So
Okay.
when people are worried, like hey, who was it's Donald Mills. Like it's no question. And then, Embo is one of my like I love this. I love this guy. He's a former Stanford football player, played for Jacksonville, um, has been a stuntman almost as long as he's been anything. His father, Terry Leonard, is literally the pinnacle when it comes to stuntmen, stunt coordinators, second unit directors, and action directors. Fast and Furious is one of his things, all the way to Indiana Jones. Terry Leonard's the guy who goes under the car and comes around like Yakima Canutt did in Stagecoach. And so he comes from legendary stock as well. And he fulfills it every time he's there. He's smart. He's an incredible athlete. He's a big fella. There's another big fella in the movie coming, Matt Willig. It's going to be really cool. So like to be a part of all that stuff around guys that you love and know, it's very gratifying. So we had a great time doing it, and I can't explain how much fun it was to hear the excitement. You think, like maybe Dave and John kind of just take it for granted. They could. They got enough on their plate not to. They're as excited as anybody to introduce these characters. Dave, because he's drawn them and created storylines for them before. John, because he loves the franchise and everything about it. Like, so it comes from the top down. Like the excitement and the importance of getting it right is huge for these guys. And so working with Donald Mills and Matt Leonard, by the way, is oh my God, Zeb. And then Rada is Rich Citron, who is Stunt Batman. The physical versions of those guys, that they're going to work the CGI and everything off of, was just incredible professional stuntmen who know what they're doing.
That's so cool to hear like that. They're so excited because I know like Dave Filoni, he actually voiced Embo in the Clone Wars.
Yeah.
So I bet for him seeing this character actually come to life has got to be pretty cool.
Oh yeah, and to know that he's going to be a part of the process of it coming to life too, because he's going to oversee how the physicality evolves, whether it's from Donald or if it's from the CGI, that end of it, because he's so smart. He's incredible.
Yeah, they're nerds just like us. I always love the story of him
so
and Sam
funny.
Witwer on Sam Witwer's first day. I don't know if you ever heard that story or not. It blew my mind. Just how much of a nerd. Yeah. So Sam Witwer, he is like one of his first days. He said on in the studio doing some lines, and they had just wrapped up this scene with Dave about Anakin saying something like, telling his mom, I wish you could have met Padme. And Sam's like, it's like in the thing, and he like raises his hand, and Dave's like, yeah, well, like, what's up? And he's like, actually, Shmi already met Padme in Phantom Menace. That already happened. And Dave like literally put his hat up, did this number on his like forehead, and went, yeah, you're right, and like out nerded the nerd, like his like first or second day in the studio. It was just kind of wild.
Well, and I mean that's so par for the course too, because if you're so often in this business, you're not around people who you can do that with. They want to be the smartest guy in the room, and if you mess with that, it's not. So to be a part of a collaborative process like that is an incredible thing, especially when you know how like big this is. And so Sam saying that, we had a grip, Diego, who, if Dave wasn't available, I would ask Diego, because he was such like he was the canon of Star Wars if Dave wasn't there. And he would be like, nope, hey, we talked, I heard you talking about, this is part of your Mandalorian Bible of how he moves and does stuff. So don't do that. And I'd be like, oh, thank you, bro. Like it was hilarious. It was hilarious. But it's all out of love. And so you're like sitting there with these guys we're madly in love with what they're doing, and the it makes the tough days, and there are plenty, so easy because you love the story you're telling.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
it's incredible to me. Like, yeah, it's a beautiful family that we have there.
Yeah. Well, I don't want to keep taking up too much of your time. I really appreciate, I know you're a busy, man. I really appreciate you being on here. Before you go though, I know, like I said, I know you can't say much, but for the fans watching out there, getting ready for Mandalorian and Grogu, how would you, without giving anything away, obviously, how would you describe the movie to fans who are getting ready to go see this in a few months?
I would honestly, like, the way I see what I've seen and everything. It reminds me of those incredibly fun action movies that we had, like Star Wars, Empire Strikes Back, but also like Indiana Jones. I think that's, somebody said, maybe John, um, like, it's an adventure. We're
Yeah.
going on an adventure, and there's some perilous things that happen, and definitely compelling. But we're on an adventure, and it's get that popcorn, get your candy, don't miss a minute. Make sure that you go use the bathroom so you don't have to walk out once. You know what I mean? Like, it's awesome.
I love it. Well, thanks again, Brendan, for being on here. Tell folks where they can follow you and your work. I did take your Instagram down there, so
Oh yeah.
but
I mean, I'm on all the socials somewhere. My daughter runs my socials. So let's keep it PG, people.
yes.
But more importantly, the real Brendan Wayne on Instagram, at the real Brendan Wayne, and I think it's the same thing across the board. I think on Facebook it's just Brendan Wayne, but I post in there and I generally respond. I mean, that's how we got this interview going. I generally go in and look at what's going on, and try to respond to people if I can. If it's a question or a request, if I can't do it, I'll send you to somebody who will.
Yeah. I love it. I love that you're actually on there, like, responding to people. That's great.
I mean, I think I owe it to y'all. I have a job because you watch, and it's not because anybody's a great actor or anything. It's because people watch, because there's plenty of things that I've watched great actors in, but guess what? Nobody watched it. So,
right.
They're not making another one, those kind of things. So it's like,
Right.
let's be real. Without the fans, we have nothing. So to me, this is just part of what I should do to honor those people who allow me to do what I love.
Well, I really appreciate it. I really do. It's been an
Thanks,
honor
man.
to have you on. I'm excited to see you hopefully this year sometime. And yeah.
Come see me. I'm going to be in Calgary. I'm going to be in Toronto. I'm going to be in Dallas at Rebel Scum. I'll be in South Dakota raising money for Voices Against Cancer, which is something that Emily was really great about, getting me invited to, and I'm very honored. So hopefully I'll be in Poland. We're getting around, man. I'll be in England in October. So let's go.
Heck yeah, I love it. All right, guys, thank you so much for watching this episode of the Podgazer podcast. And remember, the Force will be with you always.
This is the way.
Another happy landing.
You were my brother, Anakin. I loved you.
He's no good to me dead.
Do or do not. There is no try.